Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Modern Customer Podcast. I'm your host, Blake Morgan. Today we have Forrest Morgeson on the podcast. He is the Associate Professor in the Department of Marketing at Michigan State University, and he's also the Director of Research at the American Customer Satisfaction Index. Today we're talking about the ACSI Q4 macro report. We're looking at why customer satisfaction scores are converging across industries and what the trends are telling us about the state of customer service in 2026. Please enjoy Forrest Morgeson from the American Customer Satisfaction Index. Forrest, welcome back to the Modern Customer. It's so nice to see you again.
Nice to see you as well.
So, I wish that we had better news about the state of customer service and experience. But hopefully, the report we're going to talk about today from the American Customer Satisfaction Index, hopefully, our audience will get some ideas on what they can do to differentiate in 2026. But it's nice to see you. Welcome back. Are you still, is it Michigan? Are you still in Michigan?
I am in Ann Arbor, Michigan,
Yeah.
actually, yes.
Is it 100%
So we're
freezing?
no, actually, I was just going to say we had just a brutal January and first half of February, but it's warmed up for the last week. So it feels a little like spring now, but technically we're still in our winter, but it's getting better.
Well, from the report, the new report, the Q4 report of macro trends that I read from ACSI, we are in the winter of the customer service world. What's going on out there? What are you seeing?
I think the overarching takeaway is that we're seeing customer satisfaction stagnate a little bit. We've seen it move up and down over the years, but when all is said and done, we're at the same levels now that we were at about 10 years ago. That's not great. We'd like to see customer satisfaction improve. That's the sign of a healthy and growing economy. And we're seeing it sort of flatline a little bit over the past year. And really, over the past 10 years, we're seeing similar levels of customer satisfaction. So, something of a warning sign for the economy.
So, why is customer satisfaction stagnating? What's happening?
From a macro perspective, looking at it across different consumer industries at the national level, aggregating all the way up to that national level indicator that we talk about, it's really an interesting phenomenon. What we're seeing underlying all of that data with consumers and companies is that we're seeing a lot of convergence at the company level. So the highest highs aren't as high as they used to be, and the lowest lows aren't as low as they used to be. So within consumer industries, we're seeing these companies converge and come together. That's an interesting phenomenon. It means that the best consumers are going to get is not as good as it used to be. It also means that the worst that they're going to get is not as bad as it used to be, but sort of things are harmonizing and becoming a little bit more generic across different companies in these consumer industries.
So, the last few years have been really interesting from a technology perspective. The advances in AI and machine learning have been incredible, unprecedented.
Yes.
At the same time, companies are doing layoffs and focusing on cost cutting. So where are we at with these two things converging with the advances in technology and companies trying to tighten their financial belt?
This is, they always say, may you live in interesting times, whether that's a curse or a well wish. We can debate that, but we're certainly living in interesting times. I mean, we've got this unprecedented investment in AI, hundreds of billions of dollars that companies are pouring into AI. And at some point, companies have to justify those investments, whether they're ready to do so or not. And in the sense of AI as an efficiency tool, the idea is that, well, if we're investing these billions of dollars in AI, you need to be able to trim the workforce accordingly. In some cases, I think companies aren't ready to do that yet, but they're doing it anyway. In other words, the AI isn't at a stage where they can really lay off, say, customer service personnel, but they're under pressure from shareholders to do so. And so that's what they're doing. And I think in some cases, you're going to see continued negative backlash from consumers who are getting worse customer service because companies are letting workforce go before they're really ready to do so.
So why is this okay? To me it just seems like so obvious. You go to any retail store, it's hard to find a person. Maybe you're going to the grocery store, you do self-checkout. The self-checkouts, there's long lines and it doesn't work, and there's just not that Trader Joe's not handshake, but You know what I'm saying, that where
Sure.
they treat you like a person. They ask how your day is
Right.
going, what you're gonna do with these bananas you're buying. That level of customer service is just gone. And now it just feels like broadly businesses are accepting that the experience, especially in a retail environment, is just very bare bones.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's going to be a continuing phenomenon. I don't think it's something that's short lived. I think we're going to see more and more of it. I think we'll ultimately see some backlash and maybe a rebound effect where companies differentiate themselves by being higher touch human customer service delivery. But I think the reality is, as we were mentioning earlier, these companies now are under increasing pressure from shareholders to justify their AI outlays into this new technology, and that's going to mean more efficiency. More efficiency means smaller workforces. So I think we're just going to keep seeing more and more of this. We'll have to see, but there's certainly the very real possibility that at least in the near term it'll have a negative impact on customer satisfaction across the US economy.
So, from a leadership perspective, from a customer focused leadership perspective, in the report, there were a few standouts like Costco, Sam's Club, Trader Joe's, Chick fil A, even a few wireless carriers that were doing things right. So, from a leadership perspective, what is it that these companies understand that the laggards do not understand?
I think that's a tough question to answer in the sense that it's going to be a mixed bag depending on the industry they're working in, the kind of consumer they're working with, and what those customers need and demand. And so, really understanding the customer is job 1A of executives in these kind of industries and is evidence that they're doing a better job or the reason for why they're doing a better job. What is it that our customers want? How can we deliver that to them? Is really the key. All the companies that you just mentioned, or some of the companies you mentioned, it's also worth noting, yeah, they're standing out and they're doing well, but they have for a long time. None of those companies are newly minted strong satisfaction performers. They're historical strong satisfaction performers, and they're just continuing on that path. Again, it'll be interesting to see if we see some shakeups at the top as these companies adopt differential strategies for rolling out new technologies, the speed with which they do so, and their strategy in doing so. Where do they replace human labor with automated technologies?
It seems to me, from my view, that the companies that they make it more affordable to provide great experience. Like, for example, with the tariffs and just the cost of producing goods, companies have had to eat those costs in unique ways. But companies like, for example, retail, Costco, Trader Joe's, they have their own private label companies like Kirkland at Costco or Trader Joe's
Mm-hmm.
has, 80% of the products are created by Trader Joe's. So they're
Mm-hmm.
cutting costs internally in the operations and logistics and production. And so they're able to provide a better customer experience, whether it's hiring better people, training them better. So I think it's interesting to see the connection between what's happening inside the house and how that looks from the outside.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, private label brands are not a new phenomenon, but they're certainly something that has traditionally increased the value proposition for the companies that do them well. Again, mentioning Kirkland and Costco, I mean that's become a national brand, uh, whether it's a Costco brand or not, right? We all know the Costco label, we all know the quality, or at least those of us that go to Costco. It's become essentially a national brand on its own, even without its connection to Costco. And companies that can do that, they just added the value proposition and consumers tend to really like them. And we're seeing more and more of those pop up among some of the leading retailers nationally, for one example.
It seems like the companies that have innovated, they have figured out ways to provide experiences to customers that are beloved and do so cheaper. They are able to take more risks and they stay true to their values, like Chick fil A, another example. So you're seeing these companies that are able to be innovative in how they create and sell product. And on the back end, the customer can feel it because they have better customer service. They can eat more returns, they can afford to spend a little bit more on the customer relationship because they've saved money with logistics and internally in how their operations.
I think that's right. I think it's sort of a positive feedback loop. These companies that are doing well financially because of earlier strategic investments that they've made are able to reap the benefits of that by making more risky decisions in the future, or potentially risky decisions. You're seeing one of those from Chick-fil-A right now with their broader national expansion from what used to be a relatively limited market footprint. They're really expanding nationally into the state of Michigan here much more aggressively than they were in the past. And they have the freedom and the ability to do that precisely because they've made good strategic positions in the past. And very importantly, because they've developed a really strong reputation with consumers across the nation, even those that didn't have, say, Chick-fil-A's in their local market before. They've heard about it. They've heard the wonderful experiences by friends on Facebook or Instagram living elsewhere. I love Chick-fil-A. And oh, we've got Chick-fil-A coming to our market now. And in all likelihood, they'll continue to do well here. Side note, it's always there's always risk involved in expansion, and so Chick-fil-A is going to have to monitor that closely. The bigger you get, the more you have to manage. But based on their past track record, I think it's a safe bet that they're going to do well.
Yeah, and it's a similar story with Trader Joe's, where they really do no marketing, and just through word of mouth, people will travel very far to get to a Trader Joe's. There are whole Facebook pages begging for Trader Joe's to create a local version in particular markets. Like my mom lives in Savannah, Georgia. She'll drive all the way to Charleston, South Carolina, 2 hours to stock up for the month. And so you see people
Yeah.
really get so much value, like they're willing to drive far for that experience. Let's talk about some tips for our listeners. If there are a couple things that customer service leaders should be doing for 2026 to come out on top, let's say they're not doing so great right now, what should they be doing?
Well, there's so many things, right? I think the first one would be touching on something we've talked about earlier. Really carefully monitor how you're rolling out new technologies, particularly when it comes to customer service and AI. AI has advanced so rapidly. I mean, it's amazing that it's 2026 and these software packages only really came out 4 years ago. We didn't really, Chat GPT was not something anyone talked about until 2022. And now they're being fully deployed to replace customer service representatives within companies for customers who have problems. And I would strongly advise business leaders to very carefully make decisions about how you replace customer service representatives with these new technologies. And if you're not certain they can do the job, pause and move cautiously. So that's one piece of advice that I would give there. Continue listening to your customers. It's become a very muddled landscape, if you will. And that's, I think, another very important piece of advice. We now have access as market researchers and as business leaders to so much customer feedback that it's become overwhelming, I think, for a lot of us. Do we listen to what's happening on social media? Do we do traditional surveys? Do we combine those two? Do we do in-house surveys? It's become a very complicated equation. And so finding ways to continue to listen to your customers in that sort of muddier environment, I think, is really important. There's two pieces of advice. I could probably provide more, but I'll see if you want more.
Yeah, I'll take 2 more. I like the first one. What else you got?
Let me think. We live in a really interesting economic time as well. And so keeping an eye on what's going on economically within this country, I read a wonderful, little bit troubling, but wonderful story in the Wall Street Journal today that was talking about the increasing K shaped economy and how that's impacting the economy as a whole and individual consumers. But increasingly, and this has really been a phenomenon that's been closely watched since 1990, or that we're tracking back to 1990 at least, we're seeing very different economic outcomes for sort of the top 5%, 1%, and 0.1% of earners in the United States and the bottom 50%. More and more of consumer spending is being done by, as a proportion of the total national economy, is being done by the wealthiest people within that economy. And so it's a changing landscape, and how we interact with customers at different socioeconomic levels is really important. And a lot of companies are now relying more on those biggest spenders, which means different things for customer service and how we service those customers. And so I think keeping an eye on economic conditions and how they relate to what we need to do to keep customers happy is another important objective of business leaders, and should be closely monitored. Another interesting one is sort of the uncertainty that's come into the economy that we need to monitor from a customer relationship perspective in general, with the tariffs and the changes in international trade that we've seen over just the past year. How that's going to impact the economy, I think, is still a question mark. We're we're not going to know, is the truth, for a couple of years. But certainly it is safe to assume that the inability of companies to, for example, import cheaper goods for raw product for their finished products is going to have an impact on consumers. These things are something that we're going to need to keep an eye on, but understanding how the changing supply chain model is going to impact your consumers down the road is something that we really need to be mindful of in these different international trade situations or circumstances.
Yeah, one of the examples I like is Home Depot that early on realized they needed to diversify where they source product from. So they were sort of protected and insulated from the
Yep.
tariffs. So
That's a
diversity.
good example of long-term strategic thinking. Yeah, diversification just in case. That's an excellent example of being aware of what may impact your company and your customers in the future.
Yeah, it's a really interesting time to say the least. Let's talk about AI a little bit. You mentioned that you're gathering AI research and feedback right now. What are the things you're interested in when we think about AI and customer service?
Oh, wow. I mean, I don't think anything is going to have as big an impact on customer service, or AI is going to have a bigger impact on customer service as anything has since at least the internet. And it will probably be more profound than the impact that the internet has had. And so, agentic AI, as we're all talking about now, is becoming the way that customer service is delivered by a lot of companies. These AI models, and I use several of them on a daily basis, are getting, I don't want to over dramatize this, they're getting frighteningly good at doing more and more complex tasks. And it's happening so rapidly that it's very difficult, even for people who work in this field on a daily basis, to keep up. It's just going to be amazing over the next even just 5 years, but certainly 10 to 15 years, to see how dramatically this changes the delivery of customer services across the economy. And I don't just mean replacing customer service representatives and so that we ask questions to an AI rather than to a human being, but really across the board, from the entire, think of it as the marketing funnel, the entire consumer experience is now becoming infiltrated by these AI systems. How we search for products, how we go about buying the products. If we have questions pre purchase, it's going to be with an AI that we're going to be doing that. The checkout process itself has been automated for a long time online, but that will become increasingly so, all the way through customer service and loyalty decisions and repurchase decisions. The entire funnel is now becoming impacted by the deployment of AI and will continue to be so. And I, as an observer of these things, am really fascinated to see what the world will look like in just 5 years.
Do you think this is a good thing for consumers?
Wow, that's a good thing from a normative perspective. I don't know the answer to that question. I read a lot on this topic because I think it's the most important issue of our time. So I read more than just as an academic or for customer satisfaction information. We're already seeing some pushback. When I, as an educator and a person that works as a university professor, I hear it from students and I hear it from the community, is this AI is too much, right? It's doing too much for us already. And all I can say is, well, you better get used to it. And I tell students this, and I tell my own college age children this: start using it now, because it's going, whether you like it or not, whether you think it's good for the world or not, it's coming. Whether it'll be good for consumers over the long run, I don't know. And I think one of the things that we will see, and it will be secondary, this will not be the centerpiece of the economy, but I think we'll see more and more businesses differentiating themselves by offering an enduring human touch, right? We still have customer service reps in our store. If you want to come in and talk to a human rather than a machine, you can do that. I think you'll see some of that backlash against this as well, but I think the trajectory that we're on right now means that we're going to see radical changes, good or bad, for consumers.
Where do you think companies are making the biggest mistake? And what is the biggest opportunity with AI that you can see?
I mean, the biggest opportunity with AI is the reason it's being deployed: efficiency. I mean, it creates incredible efficiencies across the economy, which shows up as radically increased productivity. And like all technological innovations that have become before AI, the hope, at least, is that that will be good for the entirety of humanity, not just consumers, but for all individuals. Is that we will become so much more efficient and replace ultimately a lot of labor with automated technologies that make life better for humans. I mean, I think that's the promise of all of this. From a customer service perspective, I've already used AI agents to interact with companies that have frankly been faster and easier and better than what we were able to do when we had to go to a call center or when we had to write an email or something like that. And so I think there are real advantages from the customer service perspective. And as it gets better and better, we'll see them more and more.
And what are companies getting the most wrong?
One of the things that we're seeing is we are seeing some more market concentration in a variety of industries that we track in ACSI. The biggest companies are getting stronger and stronger financially, and they're able in that way to sort of suppress competition that we're seeing. That's really not the fault of those companies. That's the capitalistic enterprise in a sense. But ultimately, that can be really bad for consumers. If we have less competition, less innovation, less disruptive innovators, or fewer disruptive innovators entering into the marketplace, we can see what we're seeing now, which is a little bit of customer satisfaction stagnation that doesn't move us all forward as an economy.
So I want to finish up by talking about customer loyalty. You mentioned that it's really important for companies to pay attention to be honest, who can afford what they're selling right now, and then treat those customers really great to balance out the scorecard. Customer loyalty, what does it mean for 2026? What are some of the trends you're seeing?
What we saw in the data recently was a really interesting phenomenon where we saw flat customer satisfaction, but increasing customer loyalty over the past year. And so in the report that you mentioned earlier, we talk about that a little bit. It's an unusual phenomenon. Customer satisfaction and customer loyalty are traditionally very closely tied together, not only at single points in time, but dynamically over time. We tend to see satisfaction and loyalty move together. And so to see satisfaction flat, but customer loyalty improving is unusual. It also could be a warning sign. And again, this is something we talk about in the report. It could be a warning sign that consumers are expressing greater loyalty without the right underlying motivation for that loyalty. In other words, they could be saying, yeah, I'm going to be loyal because I simply don't feel like I have the same choices that I had 1 year ago or 5 years ago to go to another supplier and get a comparable product at a comparable price. There is a little bit of a warning sign here that we're seeing greater loyalty, but it may be for the wrong reasons. And that could unleash sort of a wave of what we call pent up defection, where consumers eventually say, okay, the first thing that comes online that is a viable alternative to this company, I'm going to take it because I've only been loyal because I haven't felt like I've had choices. And so I think that's something to keep an eye on, particularly as it pertains to the latest generation of consumers, soon to be the biggest contributors to the economy, that Gen Z group. And there's already some concern that they don't exhibit the same brand loyalty that their predecessors, the millennials and Gen X, have exhibited in the past. And so keeping an eye on that loyalty equation will be important.
What do you expect to see as companies make their customers more loyal? Do you expect to see better loyalty perks, more new programs rolled out this year? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, loyalty programs are tried and true, and companies are certainly investing a lot in them. We're seeing some problems with that as well. Some interesting stories over the last couple of years about airline loyalty programs and how
Yeah.
they've overpromised loyalty rewards to loyal customers, and now they have too many loyal customers asking for those perks and that higher level of service that come along with them. But I would expect to see continued investment in those loyalty programs. They tend to work well for firms. And I would see new companies coming online offering the same kinds of loyalty program perks.
Mhm. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, that's a notorious example of customer loyalty gone wrong when you don't think through. And then airlines had to kind of roll back some of the promises. And that's an interesting problem. I mean, loyalty and airline, we could do a whole podcast about that. But as far
Oh,
as
I'd love that. I love that. I love that topic of conversation because I've invested so much of my own life in air travel that thinking about how to maximize the benefits I get from my particular airline's loyalty program is it's just a fascinating equation. And very little drives my purchase decisions like loyalty program membership too. As an individual consumer, I'm speaking now. And you see it with a lot of consumers. It's a fascinating topic, and finding ways to sort of maximize your ROI on loyalty programs. Interesting topic.
Do you think there's any learnings for B2B companies with loyalty from consumer examples like airline?
It really depends on the B2B company and the client base that we're talking with here. I usually am very cautious about extrapolating from B2C context to B2B context, because B2B is in many ways a much more complicated enterprise and how you have to engage with your customers. But to the extent that you have enough customers and different tiers of customers that you can offer loyalty rewards to, most of those in the B2B context tend to be built on personal relationships rather than
Mhm.
formal loyalty programs, right? And so
Yeah.
we say, we'll give you a mass discount on this product next time you buy, or when you buy in Q3 because you're buying so much right now, and so on and so forth. So a little bit less formalized there, I think, still in some ways, but sure, to the extent that it works, yes.
Well, Forrest, this has been so fun. We have talked about so many things. The new report from ACSI, we talked about AI, we talked about customer loyalty, and honestly, we still have so much more to talk about. So we'll have to have you back to see what the trends are for the rest of the year. So hopefully you'll come back this year if you don't mind.
I'd love it.
All right. Everybody, you've been tuning into the Modern Customer Podcast. We'll put a link in the show notes to the new ACSI Customer Satisfaction Index report. And thank you all for tuning in. Until next time. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like or subscribe and follow my social content on other platforms where I post content daily, including X, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, and more.